In this exercise, we're going to be looking at some layer effects, including transforming, scaling, resizing, and how to integrate multiple layers into one image. Let's start a new file from scratch. Nice blank canvas to work with. There's some things that we need to look at over there. So File, New, and here we're presented with a bunch of presets that might be useful for us. Along the top you'll see different types of intentions for what we want to work on, film and video, mobile. These are presets that Photoshop has set up for us to get a quick start. If you don't want to use a preset and you want to use a custom document size, you can set the values over here. But let's go with a simple photo, for example. Default Photoshop size. This is way too large. 300 dpi is for print. Maybe for web we might find something better. And again, if these values don't suit your needs, let's make our own. So width, what we want to do here is put in 960. The value should be pixels. Height 768 is fine. Resolution of 72 is pretty much what the average display is nowadays. If you're working on your laptop, some of them have retina displays or high definition displays. At that point, it might go up to 144 pixels per inch. But for the most part, we work with 72. Color mode is RGB, red, green, blue. We'll get to that at some point. Background contents, it's up to you. You can choose white, black, transparent, or whatever. Let's go with white. And no color management, and always square pixels, unless you're working with video. So let's create this document. There it is. Control R will show or hide your rulers. So Control R. And if you don't want to use your keyboard, you can go to View Rulers. And if the check mark is on, that means they're activated already. And if you click here, it'll just toggle them back off. So you can see here, 0 is the top left corner up here in your artboard. This is your canvas, your artboard, your artwork area. So just keep in mind the top left pixel is the 0, 0xy coordinate. If you move across the screen, this is X, this is Y, this is the point of origin. You can see here 0, and if you move your mouse, you can see the little line move across the values there. So it gives you some idea where in the document you are. So in your layers panel, you have artboard 1 here. Layer 1 is empty. And what we want to do is we want to place directly into this artboard another piece of work. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. You can open a file. For example, let's grab this one. Separate document, completely different. You can select all, Control A, or you can go to Select All. And then you can go to Edit, Copy, or Control C, and go back to your other document and paste. So Control C, Control V, there it is. And it pastes it in as a layer. All right. Now, once you're here, there's a couple of things you can do. Of course, make sure your transform controls are on. It's auto-selected so that you can click and just drag. And you can, of course, resize, stretch, shrink. You should be familiar with all those operations by now. Now, one thing you should know is that if you move your mouse to the corner, see right about there, it switches to a little roundish arrow. This allows you to rotate the image. And if you look in the top right corner next to your cursor, it'll tell you how many degrees you're rotating it by. Now, it's kind of tough to keep it accurate, so if you hold down Shift and rotate, it'll rotate it in 15-degree increments, which are a bit more predictable and easy to work with. Now, you can also change some values up here in the properties bar with this layer selected. Okay, if you just click off that area and back on, you'll see those numbers disappear. But the minute you click this corner, as if to resize it, even if you just click and let go, it brings up the layer properties. So for example, if you want to put a manual rotation number in there, for example 33 degrees, it'll rotate it exactly 33. Go back to 0, etc. These are your XY coordinates, as we mentioned, which means that the center of your image is at 480 X, meaning this way, and 384 Y, meaning down. So there's a center somewhere around there. If you scale it, you can see those numbers changing. So you can see how they change in terms of percentage. And of course, let's undo this. And also what's important to remember is if I click again one of these little control points to trigger this window over here, is this little window. It's a little tool over here which shows you where the center is. Okay, right now. Now if you want to move that, for example, let's say you want to pivot the image in the top left. Okay, this becomes your pivot point, meaning that if I rotate it now, it's rotating along that pivot point. If I choose the bottom right, for example, that means that it's going to pivot along the other new control point. Now usually it's set along the center, so now you can just spin it around the center. Keep an eye out up here. These things are kind of important sometimes when you want to do some manual work. Click the little check mark to apply whatever changes. Now there's some other things we can do with this layer, and those are found under the Edit menu. Okay, so we have some transformations we can apply and some free transforms, perspectives, some other stuff we can do. Let's take it one at a time. For now, let's look at the transform. For example, the skew allows you to grab an edge and skew it this way, or you can skew it that way. Alright, so just grab a corner and see what you can do with it. Click escape on your keyboard and it exits if there's something that you don't want to do. For example, you're there but you haven't applied it yet. Instead of pressing enter, just press escape and you go back to normal. What else do we have under transform? We have perspective, right? So now you can grab an edge here and it'll change the perspective of this image, so you can fit it perhaps in another context. Again, escape will exit that mode. The one I like a lot is the free transform, which allows you to take a corner, hold down the control key, for example, and stretch these points however you like, and the image inside follows. Now I'll show you why the control and perspective warp is fun with this next little exercise we're going to do. But for now, try playing around with it and create about 8 different elements here on your document. So I'm going to resize this to about that size there. That's the original. I'm going to make a copy. Now, do you see what I did there? I held down the Alt key and my cursor changed. It became a double cursor, and now if I click and drag, I make a copy. And you can see here it adds the layers properly. If I hold down Alt and Shift, then it will create a copy that's aligned with the existing one. Now what you're seeing here in the pink lines are alignment lines, so that it knows that these things line up, and it gives me a hint. So one, hold down Shift, select another, hold down Shift again, click, right? So now you can see the layers are all selected. If I click an empty area, it deselects. If I drag, I'm selecting all the layers now. And if I hold down Alt, I can make a copy of all the layers. Now it doesn't matter if you go off the canvas, you can always bring them all back. By doing this. So you can, squeeze them in together a little more. There you go. So what I'd like for you to do is leave the original as is. Try experimenting with rotation, scaling, for example, and rotating. Try a skew on one or two of these. So once you create your skew shape, press Enter to apply it. Let's try it again. Edit, transform skew, but this one will do a vertical one. So I want you to create the original +7 laid out on a page like this with a variety of different transformations applied. And you can mix and match. You can change, let's say, flip horizontal. Right, that counts. Transform flip vertical. There you go. Try edit transform warp. This one's a bit different because you get control points. Let me zoom in a bit. So this one allows you to bend the image and reshape it in very interesting ways that can be a little amusing sometimes. So you can grab the little control points and change it into a very complex shape as opposed to just a square. So play around with that, press Enter to apply your changes. This one we can try, we tried perspective, distort. Alright, hold down Control, grab a corner, and have some fun with it. So do that little drill, and if you want to do some more, you could just grab another row here, hold down Alt and Shift, and just drag it right below to make a copy. And then have go to town. One last thing is naming your layers. Okay, as you can see, layer 1, copy 4, copy 5, these are arbitrary titles that Photoshop applies to new layers as they're created. But you can see how easily it can get out of hand here. If you're looking for a specific one, it's impossible to find. So what you can do is start naming, get into the habit of naming your layers properly when they're created. So it's hard to say, you can say maybe skew row 1, the skew is fun because it applies to this particular image. But row 1, if I move this and I switch things around, well, now this is no longer useful, row 2. So avoid that kind of titling, like image left. It might not end up on the left, it might end up on the right. So keep that in mind when naming your layers. It's going to be something that we're going to have to get into the practice of as we go forward. But for now, let's just finish up this exercise and save your work as Madonna-1.psd. So Madonna-1.psd. All right, that's it.